Hi, welcome to our second episode. I'm Vivian,
I'm Grazelle.
and we're back to talk about plant-based stuff. So, what are you eating right now? Or what did you eat?
Well, I already ate it. It's called ginataang gulay.
Tell me
From the
more.
Philippines, I'll show the picture will be on the screen. It's basically a soup, coconut milk and water, of course, but with a lot of squash, eggplant, and your usual spices, garlic, onion.
Is that eaten as a main dish?
Yes, it's a main dish.
Sounds so safe.
Yeah, with rice, of course.
Oh, yes. Can't forget about the rice.
Oh, by the way, this one, we put malunggay leaves, or in the US, it's called moringa leaves.
Okay. That's not bay leaves?
No, it's
Different. Okay.
moringa. Yeah.
Moringa. And I, on the other hand, I made this dish. It's a vegan cauliflower wings, and it uses Korean red chili paste, gochujang. So it has
In the
heat.
batter? Oh.
Yes. Well, so this required baking it, putting in the batter, and then baking that first. And then I brushed it with the sauce, and then I had to put it back in the oven. So it's cauliflower is the main key, or the key ingredient. And cauliflower belongs in the cruciferous family, which is great for cancer fighting properties. So this is my side dish, although it looks like a big dish. It's a lot.
That's lovely.
It's awesome. I love the spice. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is how we transitioned to a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. Grazelle, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I only talked about it a little bit from our first episode, but it took me 3 weeks to transition from a heavy meat and junk food diet to a predominantly whole food plant-based diet. The first week, I basically just did a lot of planning, just listing out the whole plant foods that I already like, because I used to just pick out the vegetables, take it out of the plate, So
the things that you liked or the things you didn't like?
That I don't like.
Oh.
In fact, that's why I like to eat with chopsticks, although Filipinos usually don't, but I like chopsticks because I could just take out the onions, take it out of my plate, put it on my husband's plate. I don't eat it. But anyway, I just listed what I already like. So green beans are one of them. Tofu, I like tofu already. Rice, which I'm glad I don't have to stop eating. Give up, yeah. And then on the first week, we ate what was left in the fridge. We still had meat in there. There was still some chicken in there and some eggs. So we just ate it. But I was already in the planning stage of and already doing the grocery lists of what to buy that weekend. I consider that still as part of the transition process. Now, we did our groceries that weekend and then bought the ingredients for what we planned to eat for the second week. And we did very well on that. However, we still put a little bit of meat because there was still some left in the fridge just for flavor.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the third week, we were almost plant-based.
That sounds like a very strategic way of doing it. Was that conscious? Was that a conscious effort or something that you planned maybe a few days out? How many days in advance did that require?
I discovered plant-based eating while reading the research, right? I spent the whole day studying. And then the next day, I told my husband. I was ready for him to say no, but he said yes. So he was on board, which I feel lucky.
Yeah, that
would have been hard. Yeah, because it would have been hard for me, especially. It was towards the weekend. I would say like a Thursday or a Friday when we made that decision, and then we did the first week of transition right after.
So my transition to the plant-based lifestyle, I think, was definitely planned out because I had been vegetarian and a junk food vegan, but I had mentioned that I was training for a bodybuilding competition. And so I had to work with a personal trainer who provided me a meal plan. And so it was already mapped out. He gave me flexibility in terms of different sources of food, but as far as macronutrients, that was set. And so he did provide me a list of plant-based proteins, some of the higher nutrient dense vegetables. And so I did have a plan, and that was really helpful rather than me doing my own research. And so the transition itself wasn't that difficult. I wasn't eating very meat centric diet anyway. The only thing I had to really learn to eliminate was egg, dairy products, which I wasn't eating too much of anyway, but it was a very easy transition for me. And since then, I was able to expand my palate, eating lentils for the first time, I remember. And that is so
Oh,
rich in proteins and it's so versatile. You could put it
yeah.
in stew, you can make meatloaf with it, and it's a natural and high source of plant protein. And since then, I still eat it. I love lentils so much.
Was it hard to follow was it his recipes that you followed?
He didn't give me any recipes. He gave me a
Yeah.
list of recommended foods. And
Okay.
in our weekly call-ins, we would review what I ate, and then he would give some suggestions if I'm struggling to hit my macros. But
Mhm.
he isn't a chef, although he can share what he eats. But there's so many resources out there. So as long as I knew what the key ingredients were, I can play around with it. But for the most part, it was consistent. I think that's part of the success of sticking to it, making it easy,
Yeah.
simplifying things. You don't want to overcomplicate it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Vivian. So now, how do you maintain your whole food plant-based diet?
And it's such second nature to me at this point. I've been plant-based for over 10 years now. And so, but there was a time where I wasn't whole food plant-based. And for me now at this point, my diet, you can say it's very routine. It's almost boring because I know what
Really?
I like and what I don't like. And it makes grocery shopping so much easier. And there are occasions if I want to try something new. And for example, the dish I made today, the vegan gochujang cauliflower wings, that's not something that I make every day, but
Yeah.
that was an opportunity for me to try something
Mm.
that's traditionally, a meat dish. And I got to use cauliflower, which adds a different texture to it. But the key to that is I think the sauce has all the power to make something really delicious. And so the gochujang
I agree.
sauce, it has a spice, it's tangy, it's so delicious. And what about you? How do you maintain?
Actually, I have a question first. When you said boring, you mean the dishes that you eat are like repetitive?
Yeah. So for
Like it's the
example,
same?
yeah, for breakfast, it's always either an oatmeal or toast. I use pumpkin
Okay.
oat bread. So it's either one of those two. Um,
Mm-mm.
of course, you can make tofu scrambled eggs. You can make pancakes. You can make waffles. I don't have those. I don't have the waffle maker. I could make pancakes if I want. Yeah. And then as far as like fruits go, I make sure to have some fruits, stocked. And that's also seasonal too. And now that we're going to enter the fall, there's going to be a lot more apples. But this past summer, I had a lot of peaches. So if
Mm.
I was feeling for something sweet, like a snack, peaches and dates, they're around all year. That's such an
Yeah.
easy go-to snack as well. So that's what I meant. Boring. I mean, it's still delicious. I don't tire of the taste, but especially when you have a busy schedule, you want something that's easy to buy, easy to prepare. So that's what I meant. But I'm typically someone who is a creature of habit. So I'll just eat the
Right.
same thing. Do you relate to that?
There are seasons
Mhm.
in my life where, because I've only been plant based for 2 years. Well, a little over 2 years now. There have been maybe a couple weeks in those 2 years where we were busy, like extremely busy. There was something going on, the holidays maybe. And then recently we just moved from Florida to Tennessee. And when those things happen, or when I get a new job,
Mhm.
when those things happen, we tend to like stick to the same 5 recipes. But when we first started, because it's still pretty recent in my brain, the first 3 weeks was the hardest, I'd say, because, you're still adjusting to the taste.
Mhm.
And I won't deny it. When you have meat on your dish, it adds some depth to the taste. But then, I was trying to get used to like not having to need that or smell that anymore and still love what I'm eating. So we were trying to learn and discover and watch YouTube for recipes, plant-based recipes for the first 3 months. After that, it was like pretty much automatic. And we have a weekly planner whiteboard on our fridge. I can
Your
put a
planner.
picture. I
I
have
like
it. Why
that.
not?
Something visual for you to see, right?
For me and my husband.
Yeah.
Yes. So he knows which ones he is assigned to cook and which ones I am assigned to make.
So you delegate, like, what you're
Yeah.
responsible for.
So like I'm responsible for this, he's responsible for that, and then we share it, and then we like just roll it throughout the weekend. We would usually do like 3 dishes and rice.
That you would
every
rotate.
week. We would rotate. Yeah.
That's a really good strategy.
Breakfast though is usually oatmeal, usually. But yeah, it kind of depends. But I like to have like a guideline because now it's like I already know how or where to find plant-based foods now. I have like my go-to recipes. So yeah, it's pretty much easy. And every now and then we'll try to learn a new recipe. Like last week, my husband just tried to do veggie biryani. It's like
Oh,
an
that's
Indian.
for Indian fried rice.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. To add to that, as far as like strategies to maintain it and be successful with it, you need to make sure you eat enough because plant-based foods naturally have lower calories. Not all of them, but they do contain a lot more water content. And so you're going to want to eat more. You're going to have to eat more to feel satiated. And some people who are new to this lifestyle may start off eating that way and they may feel really hungry and then they'll blame it that the plant-based diet is not for me. I think this is great for someone like me who loves to eat. So I'll find an excuse. So yeah. And it just naturally makes it easy for you to maintain your weight, a healthy, a natural weight, and you just get to eat more.
I think that's the best part actually, because you have to eat more volume wise,
right?
Versus when I was doing calorie restriction to lose weight 5 years ago, which I would just eat very little at the time. But now it's like, I don't have to like overthink it anymore.
No. And then you just naturally know when to stop too, when you feel full. You're not going to overeat.
Yeah. But I did lose weight. I still did lose weight the first 3 months of switching to plant-based. So I lost like 8 pounds.
Wow.
My husband lost, if I remember it right, 13 pounds.
Wow.
Mostly though, we felt it in our midsection area.
I mean, as females, we tend to store a little extra weight in the stomach and thigh area. So I was never overweight, but there were, those are the areas where I did notice a little bit more weight. And since eating this way, like you just naturally start to lose the weight and it's calorie restriction. You're still eating sufficiently.
How do you keep eating plant-based, whole food plant-based when you travel? And I know you just traveled.
Yeah. So this is a very timely
Tell me about
question. I returned from a week-long vacation in Mexico. And I had done a little bit of research, not as far as writing down restaurants, like vegan restaurants, but from what I've heard from other people, I knew that I could find relatively easily vegan restaurants. The thing about, especially when you're traveling or if you're eating out, dining, it's not always going to be 100% whole food plant-based.
And it could be plant-based, just maybe not whole food.
Exactly. It could be plant-based. And I think you have to allow yourself to feel that it's okay. I think as long as you're making an effort and trying to make the best of the situation, and ultimately we want more plants on our plate. So it's not about perfection. So when I was traveling, there were occasions I can tell that, the food contained more oils than I am accustomed to. I don't put oils in my food and maybe higher in salt. Of course, when you're traveling, you want to experience new sights, new tastes, especially if it's of a different culture. And so it's not always that they prepare it the way that you would. So I still want to partake in that. So there were occasions where I had chips, but they were like, banana chips. And one thing that I can say is whole food plant-based was the corn tortillas. fresh,
Sure.
warm off I don't know if they use a pot, but you can tell it's warm and it's fresh. It's unlike the ones that you would buy in the supermarket where it's put in plastic bags. So we had a lot of tortillas. I had vegan tacos. So this is actually a good example. So the vegan tacos, the tortilla was made out of corn, but the filling, they did use mock meat. It's a soy-based vegan meat that isn't exactly whole food plant-based. It is a little bit more processed. But for the reasons that I mentioned earlier, I still wanted to partake in foods that were vegan, but were also reflective of the traditional foods that they would have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like we mentioned in the previous episode that, it's the overall eating pattern that matters.
That's right.
In my case, it's kind of the same. My rule though is that when I go travel, have less expectation, like not to expect too much of myself.
Yeah.
Or my husband or anybody.
Part of the fun is to experience these different things, and food is such a big portion of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
But I also did prepare. So I did bring with me oatmeal. I personally use a little bit of protein powder that is technically processed, but just to make sure I have enough protein because I am also trying to build muscle. So I brought with me.
You still are?
Yeah. Or maintain it. But I did pack with me oatmeal that I, checked in with my bag. And, I was easily able to find non-dairy milk at their convenience store. So I would put that in there. Dates are so travel friendly, and it's such a easy way to get your
snack on.
And for yourself, what are some of the strategies that you implement when you're traveling? Because it's not going to be 100%.
No, it's not. So what I do is just like what you did, I would research first. Not like over obsess on it, but at least like say at the airport, I would know when your layover. So I would just look at the directory of like what foods I could eat there. Like say when I went to the Philippines, make sure that you request for a vegan meal on your flights. Yeah.
We didn't have meals. I think because of the flight was shorter.
Sure.
Yeah. But there were snacks, and there were, we had actually dry fruit. That was one of the snack options. So that was great to see. Going back to the point where you might not stick to a completely whole food plant-based meals. I did have an occasion where it's not so much of a slip. I was aware that what this particular dish didn't, fulfill all the whole food plant-based requirements. But this was, a moment where I was eating with my mother. We traveled together, and there was a dessert, and it was at a Japanese restaurant. They had mochi ice cream, and I hadn't had one for a long time. And also, I hadn't traveled with my mother for a long time, so this was a special mother-daughter trip. And at the end of our plant-based udon, we looked at the dessert, and my mom is not vegan, and so she really wanted the mochi ice cream, green tea, and I noticed that there was a lychee one. So I asked the server if it was non-dairy. She said no. So I ordered one for my mom anyway. And as she's eating the dessert right in front of my eye, I couldn't help but want to eat that too. It looked so good, and she couldn't help just, raving about it. And so rather than me just sulking, I wanted to be in that moment to share with my mom. It is a social, moment, and it's also an opportunity to bond. My mom.
Yes.
So I did make that decision to order one. And as you said, it's an overall pattern. It's not the ice cream, dairy ice cream is not something that
you just eat once.
Yeah, exactly. And
in a year.
Yeah. And to even, I've been back, for a week now. And my mom and I say, hey, do you remember that incredible mochi ice cream? So we have that lasting memory. So for me, it was worth it.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I also think is like the good thing about being whole food plant-based which is basically a healthy dietary pattern is that when these moments come where maybe you could eat a little bit of what that is something that is just less healthy, it's okay. Because your overall pattern was good.
And you do have to have a balance. I also don't want to give off this impression that you can use that every time you're out. Like,
No,
Yeah.
you
So
still have to try
right,
your best,
right. So we
like you
want to
said.
be clear about that. It is your overall eating pattern, and basically want to encourage people to eat more plants. The more, the better.
The more, the better.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Well, we're going to wrap up this episode.
Yeah.
And next, we will be talking about what are the common challenges of living a whole food plant-based lifestyle.
Sounds good. We'll see you then.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.